non-negotiable distinction. Hashtag, tag, hashtag, tag 7. Past perfect, active, passive.
Okay, past perfect. The before the past tense. Essential for that chronology we talked about. Sentence 13, active. By 2015, she named 3 international prizes. Options. Had won, has won.
That marker, by 2015, is doing all the work here. It sets a specific point in the past.
Like a deadline in the past.
Exactly. And the action winning the prizes must have happened before that 2015 cutoff point. Action A winning happened before past time B, 2015.
This is why just using adverbs like before isn't always enough in really formal writing.
Yeah.
Right? The tense itself locks the sequence in place.
Precisely. It removes ambiguity. So we need the past perfect structure. Had plus past participle. Had won. This shows the achievement was already completed prior to 2015.
And won, past simple, wouldn't specify when relative to 2015, and has won, present perfect, wrongly connects it to the present.
Correct. Okay, sentence 14, the passive version. The evidence already before the trial began. Options. Had been presented, was presented, has been presented.
Okay, sequence again. 2 past actions, presenting the evidence, A, and the trial beginning, B, before tells us A happened first.
And the subject, the evidence, received the action of presentation. It's passive.
So we need the before the past tense, past perfect, and it needs to be passive.
Combine those. Had plus been plus past participle, presented, had been presented. It clearly communicates that the evidence submission was complete prior to the trial starting. Hashtag, tag 8, past perfect, continuous, active, passive. All right, last pair in the past. Past perfect, continuous. Now we're focusing on the duration of an activity that was happening before another past event.
Okay. Sentence 15, active. The negotiations for months before the agreement was reached. Options, had conducted, had been conducting, conducted.
See the cruise. For months gives us the duration. Before the agreement was reached gives us the past completion point.
So the negotiations were ongoing for a period of time leading right up to the moment the agreement happened in the past.
That's the perfect scenario for past perfect continuous.
Yeah.
Had been conducting. It emphasizes the length and continuity of the process before the result.
How does that differ from just had conducted, past perfect simple?
Had conducted focuses purely on the completion of the conducting action before the agreement. It doesn't highlight the duration, the for months aspect. Had been conducting really stresses that ongoing effort leading up to the past point.
Got it. Okay, final past tense sentence, number 16, passive perfect continuous. Or maybe a simplified version again. The case thoroughly before the jury gave its verdict. Options. Had been examining, had been examined, was examining.
Exactly. Similar challenge to sentences 8 and 4. Let's break it down. Subject, the case. Passive, it received the examination.
Okay, clue. Before the jury gave its verdict. So the examination happened before that past point. And thoroughly implies it took time, suggesting duration.
Right. Now look at the options. Had been examining is active. The case wasn't examining anything. Was examining is past continuous active, also wrong.
So it must be passive and happen before the verdict. That points towards past perfect passive. But what about the duration?
Again, the full, technically accurate past perfect continuous passive had been being examined is extremely rare and stylistically very awkward.
Almost never used in practice.
Almost never. So formal style defaults to the simpler past perfect passive had been examined. This structure covers the completion of the action before the past deadline, and the adverb thoroughly helps convey the duration aspect implicitly. The focus is on the state of completion after that extended review.
So recognize the duration hint, recognize the before the past timing, recognize the passive need, but choose the standard past perfect passive form.
That's the advanced move here.
Okay, final stretch. Let's launch into the future tenses. Future simple continuous, perfect. Perfect continuous. Super important for predictions, plans, project management, forecasting. Anything looking ahead? Hashtag tag 9. Future simple, active passive.
Sentence 17, active voice. The government, new regulations next year. Options will introduce, introduces, introduced.
Time marker, next year. Clear future reference. Talking about a plan or prediction.
Yep. Standard future simple is needed here. Will introduce. Straightforward statement of future intent or action.
Okay, sentence 18, passive. The winners of the competition on live television. Options. Will announce, will be announced, are announced.
Subject, the winners. Can they announce themselves?
Nope, passive again, someone else announces them, so will announce, active is out.
What about are announced? That's present simple passive.
That sounds more like a fixed regular schedule, like the winners are announced every year in May. But this sounds more like a specific future event announcement.
Exactly. For a predicted or planned future event where the subject is passive, future simple passive is the standard choice. Will be announced. Clear. Future passive. Hashtag tag tag hashtag 10. Future continuous. Active passive.
All right, future continuous. Thinking about actions in progress at a specific future time. Sentence 19. Active. At this time tomorrow, the final draft of the report. Options. Will complete. Will be completed.
That time marker is incredibly specific. At this time tomorrow, it pinpoints a precise moment in the future.
And the tense needs to describe what will be happening at that moment. Not finished before, not starting after, but actually in the middle of doing it.
Right. That calls for future continuous, will be completing. It emphasizes being immersed in the activity at that future point. Great for coordinating teamwork. Don't call me then. I'll be finishing the draft.
What about will complete?
Future simple. That suggests the action finishes at that time or is simply planned for then rather than being in progress during that moment. Will be completing focuses on the ongoing nature at that specific future instant.
Okay. Sentence 20. Another passive check, feels like. The new bridge throughout the summer. Options will be constructing, will be constructed, is constructed.
Yep. Subject, the new bridge. Passive, it receives the construction.
So will be constructing is out immediately. The bridge isn't building anything.
Correct. Now, the time frame is throughout the summer. That implies duration, an ongoing process in the future.
So technically, future continuous passive will be being constructed.
Again, grammatically possible, but extremely cumbersome and almost always avoided in practical formal English, like project plans or news reports about infrastructure.
So the simplification rule applies again.
It does. Given the duration throughout the summer and the passive need, the standard, clear, and preferred form is the future simple passive will be constructed. It clearly conveys the passive action will occur over that future period.
Good to know that pattern holds for the future too. Hashtag 11. Future perfect, active passive.
Now, future perfect. This is all about actions that will be completed before a specific point in the future, setting future milestones.
Sentence 21. Active. By 2030, scientists a cure for several major diseases. Options. Will have discovered. Will discover.
The magic phrase. By 2030. Just like by 2015 anchored the past perfect, this anchors the future perfect.
It's a future deadline. The discovery needs to be finished before that.
Exactly. So we need the future perfect structure. Will have plus past participle, will have discovered. Essential for long-range scientific or strategic goals.
Okay. Sentence 22. Passive perfect. The results by the time the conference begins, options will have been published, will publish, have been published.
Okay, analyze it. Future point in time. By the time the conference begins. Subject, the results. Passive, they get published.
So we need an action completed before that future time, and it has to be passive.
Which structure fits? Will publish is active. Have been published is present perfect passive, not future.
Has to be will have been published, future perfect passive. Combines the future completion and the passive voice.
Perfect. Hashtag tag, hashtag 12. Future perfect continuous, active passive.
Okay, the grand finale of the tenses. Future perfect continuous. Combining future completion, duration, and continuity.
Right. Sentence 23, active. By the end of the semester, the students advance research skills for 6 months. Options. Will have been developing, will develop, have been developing.
Let's spot the clues. Future deadline. By the end of the semester, duration leading up to it. For 6 months.
That combination duration leading up to a future point is the classic trigger for future perfect continuous.
It describes an action that starts before the future point, continues right up to it, and emphasizes that whole stretch of time.
Exactly. Will have been developing. Shows the continuous effort over the 6 months culminating at the semester's end.
Okay, last one. Sentence 24. Looks like the most complex structure. Passive, future perfect, duration implied. The case for nearly a decade by the time the Supreme Court reaches a decision. Options. Will have been reviewing, will have been reviewed, has been reviewed.
Let's break it down one last time. Subject. The case. Passive. Duration. For nearly a decade. Future anchor point. By the time the Supreme Court reaches a decision.
Okay, look at the options. Will have been reviewing, that's active voice. The case isn't reviewing anything.
Correct. Has been reviewed, that's present perfect passive. It ignores the future anchor point completely.
So we need a passive form that indicates completion over a duration before that future decision point. This feels like the same pattern as sentences 8, 16, and 20.
It is exactly the same pattern. The technically pure future perfect continuous passive, will have been being reviewed, is just too awkward for standard use.
So the formal simplification applies.
Yes. We use the future perfect passive, will have been reviewed. It captures the passive nature and the completion relative to the future deadline. The duration, for nearly a decade, is understood from the context and the adverbial phrase.
Wow. Okay, we made it through all 24, from simple habits to these really layered future passive scenarios. Right, that was incredibly detailed. We've dissected every single tense in active and passive. Listeners probably have a much deeper understanding now, but how do you take all that and turn it into a quick, reliable method when you're staring at a multiple choice question on a test or trying to write a formal email quickly?
That's the crucial next step, isn't it? We connect this to the bigger picture. What we've really done is apply a consistent, systematic approach. We can boil it down to basically a three-step recognition method. This is your shortcut.
Okay, I like shortcuts. What's step one?
First and foremost, scan the sentence for those key time words or phrases. They're almost always the biggest clue.
We saw so many examples, like usually in sentence 1 telling us present simple.
Or at the moment in sentence 3, screaming present continuous.
For over 3 weeks in sentence 7, pointing straight to present perfect continuous.
And those crucial chronological anchors. By 2015 for past perfect in sentence 13, or by the time the conference begins for future perfect passive in sentence 22.
So find that time phrase first.
Yes, it immediately helps you narrow down the possibilities. If the marker clearly indicates duration, like for or since, you're looking at a perfect continuous tense.
Unless it's passive, then you might simplify to perfect simple passive, like we saw.
Exactly. If the marker sets up a sequence, something happened before or will happen before another fixed time, you must use a perfect tense, past or future. Finding that marker often eliminates, maybe 90% of the wrong answers right off the bat.
Okay, after the time marker, what's next?
You absolutely must check the relationship between the subject and the verb. Is the subject doing the action or is the subject receiving the action?
This came up again and again. It seems like the most common trap, especially at advanced levels.
It really is. Think back to sentence 12, the experiment while the students were observing.
Right. The experiment was being conducted. If you missed the passive, you had the experiment doing the conducting. Total nonsense.
Or sentence 18, the winners on live television. They will be announced. They aren't doing the announcing.
So the quick check is the subject the actor or the acted upon?
Precisely. And if it's acted upon receiving the action, you must use a passive structure. That means some form of the auxiliary verb to be, conjugated correctly for tense and number, followed by the past participle of the main verb.
And paying special attention to including being for those continuous passive forms, like was being conducted.
Absolutely critical for accuracy in those cases. This active-passive check ensures your meaning is crystal clear, which is non-negotiable in any kind of formal or technical communication.
Okay, step 3. This feels like it circles back to those perfect tenses.
It does. The perfect tenses, present perfect, past perfect, future perfect, are the language's primary tool for managing chronology and completion relative to a point in time. You need to decide, are you just stating an action happened, simple tense, or are you specifically stating it was completed relative to now, present perfect, before a past point, past perfect, or before a future point, future perfect?
So the words have, has, had, or will have are like signposts for these relationships.
Exactly. They act as chronological anchors. When you use had, past perfect, like in sentence 14, the evidence had been presented before the trial began, you are explicitly locking in the sequence, evidence first, then trial. No confusion possible.
And using will have, future perfect, like in sentence 21, scientists will have discovered a cure by 2030, makes the future completion unambiguous.
Right. Relying just on time words like before or after can sometimes be less precise than using the perfect tense structure itself. Mastering these tenses is essentially mastering how to tell stories or present sequences of events with absolute clarity in a formal register. Hashtag, tag, outro.
Okay, so that's the toolkit. 3 steps. Check the time marker. Check the active-passive relationship. And check if you need a perfect tense for sequence or completion. Applying that systematically, based on the 24 examples we unpacked, should give anyone a huge advantage.
It really should provide a solid framework. And perhaps one final thought for you to consider, building on what we discussed. We saw repeatedly how formal English often avoids those technically precise but frankly awkward continuous passive forms like is being broadcast or will be being constructed, opting for simpler passive structures instead.
Yeah, the stylistic choice for clarity and flow.
Right. But it raises an interesting question for really advanced users. While this simplification happens in general academic or journalistic writing, are there specific, highly specialized registers, maybe very technical engineering specifications, or certain kinds of legal drafting where the grammatical rules become so rigid that only the technically correct, even if clunky, continuous passive form is acceptable or even mandatory. Where does that line between stylistic preference and absolute grammatical necessity actually fall in the most demanding contexts?
Hmm. That's definitely something to mull over. When does practicality give way entirely to prescriptive grammar? A great point for further exploration.
Food for thought.
Well, thank you so much for walking us through this incredibly detailed source material. This deep dive into advanced tense mastery was intense, but hopefully, listeners, you now feel much more equipped to handle these structures with confidence in any formal setting.